Let me see. Every week I forget to do something, but I think I got us. I had us go out on Facebook Live, and then all of a sudden that disappeared. But I tell you what, I am going to record it.
Recording in progress.
There we go. I'm going to record it, and then we'll start. I can transfer it over to YouTube later.
I'm watching Facebook Live now, and it is active.
It is active.
Hmm.
You know, I ain't complaining, but well, okay. Anyway, listen, I got some what I think are some great topics today. What I'd like to start us out doing was I was on Facebook and I saw a post from a young musician, and it just kind of reminded me of my experience. And what he said was that he would not be playing any more church conferences, special meetings. And I'm thinking he's in the L.A. area, the Los Angeles area, and somebody responded and said, "Yeah, man, do what you got to do. These churches and conventions always stiffen you and stuff like that." And I kind of thought back to my own experience, and I'm not calling names because I'm not going to bear any blame. I don't want anybody coming for me. But I've been in situations where, I put out a whole lot of effort, a lot of myself, and at the end of it, I was what they gave me was a little bit more than a thank you. I mean, I could buy a hamburger, after being in service a whole week, with 2 or 3 services, events going on a day. I didn't get much sleep, because I would be up till that. I understand this young man's feelings. What would you guys, as experienced musicians, say to him? Well, don't everybody speak at once.
Well, I'll speak from my standpoint. I've done a lot of convocations, services, um, and that's time I will time honestly I will never get back. All the rehearsals, and then you go to the actual service. I've actually had, well, again, I want to call names, but I went to a convocation to play, and even though I met all the choir rehearsals, they put someone else on the organ who wasn't in any of the rehearsals
Yeah,
because that was a friend of the person who was in charge.
yeah. That. Oh man, I since shudders because I remember being in situations like that also. I remember being, invited to play, and then somebody that invited me to play invited another musician for when they got up. So, you know, most people, and the reason I'm bringing this up because most people do not realize the things that we go through as musicians. I've said it a number of times, and I'll say it again. They see what we do on Sundays, and because we make it look good, they have no idea what it took to get us to that point. So, what would you say to this young musician? I want to encourage him because I want him to know not everybody is like that. Not all organizations are like that. I've been in some situations where the organizations were very good to me, and I've also been in situations where I got stiffed.
I
Yes.
would say,
Good, Reggie. Yeah.
well, I would say to the young man, it's a learning experience. It's painful because you're not expecting it from the church.
Right, exactly.
That's where the pain is and the disconnect is. But you have to first look out for you. Take it as a learning experience and be mindful of the people who you are dealing with
Hmm.
and their credibility. Don't look at because they got a Bible and a cross that everything's all right. No, they're not Jesus or any of the disciples. They are human beings like you and I, and they are subject to do things that's not proper. So better than to hold a grudge, take it as a learning experience, and just for the next particular service, check out who the people are that you're dealing with and their respectability and their credibility as a person, as a Christian, as someone that can be trusted. And go by that. You'll save yourself a lot of headache. And I still say, young musicians, get you a primary daytime job. Don't always depend on the churches to always do the right thing.
Yeah, that's good asset. I mean, good information. Let me ask you a question. Um, in a situation like that, there are some organizations that you will actually sign an agreement or a contract, and there are some organizations that will pay you ahead of time. I think the first time that happened to me, it really knocked me off my feet, because that had never happened. How do you say to an organization that wants to contract you for an extended period of service that you want to be paid up front? How do you say that? How do you articulate that? Because I'll be honest with you guys, I have always had a problem with that. I always expected people to do the right thing. So, if they said come, I would come and I would do my thing. And then, I've had occasions where I had to sit around a couple hours waiting for them to decide to pay me or whatever. But how do you articulate that in such a way that you don't come off sounding money hungry, but you want your money up front?
In this day and age, because it's a lot different than than my brother. It was almost required that we be there, because if our pastor would go, he's expecting to see us participating. But this day, here 2023, these guys are not showing up unless there is a monetary agreement in place, and half before I come, and then I want the other half when I show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that you don't hurt any feelings. The Bible says, in all thy getting, get an understanding. These are things that can be spoke of before you even say yes. And if there's any kind of a hesitation or any kind of a pushback, then no is just as easy.
Up front, yes. Hey, Sam Perryman, how you doing? For him to get his setup correct.
I agree. I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I was asked to do a morning service for this coming Easter, and I have to make sure when I do my follow-up callback that the contact person who's supposed to compensate me, I see them when I come in the door, because it happens to be a particular church that I have first time going to, and I have to make it very clear when I come into the door who is the contact person, and I want to see the envelope in their hand. I don't want them to tell me, after service, like I said, you got to wait 2 or 3 hours, or they got to go to the ATM. No. I'm going to make that very, very clear again, that when I come to the church, as soon as I walk in the door and you see me, because I always go a half hour early before the service to check the church out, to see what's going on my first time being there. I want to see the person who was holding the envelope.
Yeah.
Now, if they start talking about, I said, my car still runs, I'm going home. And see, people will say that's cruel. No, that's business. That's business. We agreed to something. Either you hold to it, or I will hold to mine. And if you do the right thing, then I will follow through on what my commitment. But once you break the commitment by not following through, there's no commitment I have. But to go about my business and chalk it off as a learning experience, and make other musicians aware of how this particular institution handles guest musicians. I will not let anybody else that active about that particular church go there knowing if they don't do right. But yes, there's no reason you can't, because what are you doing? You ain't counting my money when I get there. You should already have it in place. So therefore, if I ask for a certain amount of money when I get there, there's no reason why my money's not there when I walk in the door. You see me, I see you. You do what you're supposed to do, and I'm going to do what I came to do.
All right. And I think that's good advice. Although, again, I will state that we run the risk of sounding like we're all about the money, and we're not. But if you have been burned as many times as some of us have, you have to look out for you, because nobody else is going to look out for you. Sam Perryman, you got your mic and stuff up?
Well, I can hear you.
Oh, good. We are currently talking about, I mentioned that there was a young man who's on my Facebook friends list, and he posted, he said, I'm never playing for another church, a convention, I think he said, another convention or meeting in Los Angeles. And he didn't give a lot of details, but I assumed he had gotten stiff because somebody wrote to him and said, yeah, man, you got to do what you got to do. These churches, not meaning all churches, but I'm just saying what he said. These churches will cheat you. There's a lot of liars in the churches, and on and on and on. And so the question I ask is, how do we encourage young people who have been in that situation? And I know, Sam, maybe you have been in that situation also, where people have told you, come play and do this, and then they stiffed you, or it wasn't what they said they was going to give you, or they make you sit around and wait an hour to get it or whatever. And so we was trying to encourage not only this young man but all young church musicians, because after a while, like I say, when you get to most of our age, you have a strategy in place. Look, this is a business thing. Yeah, we meeting for church, we meeting for a spiritual cause, but this part of it is business, and we have to take care of the business. Do you have anything you would say to this young man, Sam Perryman?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Sam Tobert. Or stiff. I don't know. I think that if I had a bad experience with a person, and I don't know what this necessarily, the dynamics that I heard Burgess talking about, showing up like a soldier with his gun cocked. I don't know that necessarily I would necessarily take that approach. Although I understand, especially if you've had experiences, once bitten, twice shy. But I sort of wouldn't want to. One, when you said, and I know you were repeating what you had gathered from what you read, but I wouldn't write the church off, or even the Los Angeles area. If I had a problem at X church, then that's a problem at X church, and I don't take it to why other than oneself and one's experience. Because if I had a bad experience with this musician group and all of a sudden I go to another one, that's just not how I deal with it. I would deal with it on a case by case basis, and I would always look at myself. What could I have done better? And if I've done all my due diligence, and I would be patient. If they were a little slow coming, that's cool. Maybe we could talk about it. Especially if I like the money and I had to wait for 20 minutes for it, maybe next Sunday, I'll tell them, I got something to do. Kind of putting something in there to sort of soften it, as opposed to, just kind of exploding. Because I just don't, I'm defined by how I deal with my frustration, not the frustration itself. So I would say, kind of keep that in mind too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, to be clear, I don't think this young man was writing the church off, because he's a very good musician, and I imagine, he...
No, I wasn't saying the church necessarily, but any general group. You said the Los Angeles area, you said the...
Well, he said conventions and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he was writing the church off, just, playing for extended periods of time.
But I mean, I still go back to, and I don't want to dominate here, I just have one opinion, but I still go back to that idea. I can't think of a better one. People find all kinds of reasons to criticize any institution, but yet others, they have the same kinds of experiences, but they don't stop. If I have a problem at X grocery store, I go to Y grocery store. If I don't go to X grocery store and just not deal with the person that gave me a problem. And so I'm just saying that if we kind of think of it in a broader context, which causes us to really look at our own behavior, right? I guess ultimately that's where, at least that's how I deal with my own challenges. I'm sort of in cahoots now, not in a church context, but I'm just kind of looking at me. What could I have done different? Because at the end of the day, if there's a conflict with me and you, I always have a choice. I don't have to enter it, and therefore the repercussions I don't have to necessarily deal with, and sometimes that's appropriate.
Okay.
So I don't have a direct answer, but I just think that I would just be gentle, because you never know that it could be a blessing coming for you in some way or the other.
Yeah, and I think if the situation ever arose where somebody wanted him to do a convention and they paid him up front, I'm sure he'd do it. So, a lot of times when we're speaking out of our emotions, we go to the extremes, you know what I mean? But everything has changed. Everything is relative, and as you said, everything could change. But I'm kind of like leaning toward Burgess myself. I'm, because I am retired, mostly retired. So there's not going to be a lot of places I'm going to return to back and forth several times. So if somebody wants me to come do something, I am probably going to ask them to make sure I get paid up front, because I probably won't be back to that organization again. And there have been a couple occasions where I did have to write it out because I did not get paid. right? So as you said, once burnt,
Bit twice.
whatever that say it is, you know what I'm saying? And
I mean,
so
I'm just saying that all I'm speaking to is approach.
yeah, oh yeah,
You can talk about anything. There's a way to talk about that, and I think that that's what defines us. How we do the same thing somebody else do, and there's a way to say, look, I like my check before I sit down,
yeah.
without kind of being off-putting.
Well, yeah, again, and then yeah, we're not going to belabor this because I want to move to a different track. But no matter my experience is, no matter how you ask for it, how nicely you ask for it, how gruffly you ask for it, nobody's going to take up for you. You have to take up for yourself, and so I guess what I'm saying is, and I don't want to belabor the point and beat a dead horse here, but again, take care of you. You get what you got coming, because everyone on here, I know, if you sit down to an instrument, you are going to give 100%. If you're in a rehearsal, if they call you for a rehearsal or whatever, I know you're going to do 100%. And I don't think it's, in my book, I don't think it's fair if they contract you, you give 100%, and then they not agree to the obligation, right? So if you want, we can visit that a little later. But I kind of want to move on. We approached this subject once before about being celebrated and being tolerated, right? And I had a clip, and wouldn't you know it, it's not in my. Well, let's see. This might be it. I'm not sure, but I saw something. This is not what I want, but we'll go here just for.
Bringing the world into the church.
Let's talk about this.
Most people may not know what you're playing, but I gotta check you.
Can you hear this, guys?
God is holy. Stop mixing
It's kind of muffled a little bit.
Yeah, well, it is muffled.
It don't mix. Unholiness, don't mix with holiness. For real. You know, a lot of times musicians do things because the crowd don't understand it. Keep that crap out of church. You have break stems and all that stuff like that. I don't mind church as long as it's anointed. Keep that worldly crap out of your stems, out of your songs. It ain't no gun. It ain't no gun. So I gotta check y'all. Ain't gonna like it? Well. Keep that crap out of God's presence. We don't need none of that. We don't need none of that. You trying to worship, and you playing Twinkle Twinkle Star and all this other crap. When you wish upon the star in Aladdin, that's not God. That crap out. Throw those stems away. Pray God opens your eyes to see here. Don't let your pride respond. Be blessed.
All right. Tell me, guys, what do you think? I have some definite thoughts about that, but I'd like to know what you think.
I like what he said. Again, if you don't check the musicians and what they're playing, again, remember back in the day, I was playing "Don't Let Your Donors Get You Down" during a shout. Okay, and because nobody was checking me, except for because of the fact that I was a musician, I was a young musician. I wasn't serving God, I was serving me. Okay, a young musician, talented, and I learned the song from the Temptation. And it had a beat that they could dance to, and I played it. Now I know now it wasn't the right thing to do again in God's house, because I know better now. I have a greater understanding, and I think that you have to tell young musicians, all musicians, listen, there are certain things that you should not bring to the church. You should not be playing stuff on the organ from a R&B artist that does not serve God. That's more into other forms of worship than serving God. So I think the important thing he was trying to say is that don't play stuff that does not give God honor and glory as a musician. So you don't destroy the effect of what God's trying to do.
All right, so my question is, because I think I take exception. I want to disagree. I want to offer a different viewpoint. But before I do that, does anybody else want to kind of chirp in on that?
Well, it's almost like, Pandora's box has been open for decades now. Musicians have been playing whatever they felt to play. And if they heard the songs that Sunday morning, listening to in the New York area, Yeah, WLIB, R&B station, and they like those chords. Of course, they're going to test them on Sunday morning to see how they accept it. Why we hear so much?
Yeah, you know what? Again, my computer is going haywire. And go ahead. I have to figure out what's going on again.
Can we make the melody sound a bit more interesting?
You've been hacked.
Maybe sort of.
Is that what it may be? It very well may be. Yeah, because I don't see where it's coming from.
I
But
think I would take the. Well, no, I think Sam was talking.
Yeah, and
I think the melody
Go ahead,
is
Sam.
a bit too short. Can we try one that's twice as long?
Is that what you're saying, Sam?
yeah, there's still that back talk.
right, I'm working to get around that. I don't see where that's coming through. So anyway, go ahead and say what you were saying. Let's see if we can get past this.
This is what you should play. This is how you should play. There's been no one at the gate. Pastors and ministers have allowed musicians, if they could touch the organ, if they knew how to turn it on, they got a job. And they almost grow on the job before they grow away from it. And then the next crew comes in, and there's still no one at the gate saying, this is what we require for our, whatever church they're in or denomination they're in, service.
Okay. Sam Perryman, did you want to chirp in before I do?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not an either or person, and I guess the ultimate gatekeeper is the listener. And if the power broker happens to be the pastor who listens, and what he hears doesn't quite please him, then we get what we get. But if someone were asking me what I thought about the way a certain person used certain musical influences that he may have heard from some R&B artist in his instrumental presentation, I don't know whether they're necessarily referring to playing Luther Vandross doing prayer of confession, as much as I think perhaps musicians are influenced by some R&B or some other jazz musician and using and infusing some of that stuff into how they approach songs. I think sometimes it can take the character out of a song the way that we appreciate it, and that's a taste kind of issue for me. But I wouldn't necessarily make a sweeping statement such as I heard the gentleman say, because I didn't think he said much. Really, because you have to put it in context. And as a musician, if my opinion was heard, if I was sitting on a panel, I'd say it depends on what I'm hearing, and also thinking about my congregation, especially if they are a bit older and their ears are more accustomed to something a bit more standard, then I wouldn't stray too far, but I wouldn't put a noose around a musician's neck saying you can't. But it needs to be in taste, whatever it is. So that's why I'll leave it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It needs to be in taste. Thank you, gentlemen. I guess I'm a little bit more liberal than most of you are. What makes music good or bad? What makes it evil or not evil? I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was in a special summer program. I think you probably remember the program CETA. It was a summer program for youth. And the program that I was in a music studio, the Chess Music Studio. The Chess Music Studio put out all the blues. They were the heavy hitters in Chicago for a while, right? And so we had a program there, and they wanted to mentor young musicians and turn them into songwriters, introduce them to the recording industry and all of that. And so they encouraged each of us to write a song, and we were going to, fully produce it, and, to the point that it could go on wax, as they used to say. So I wrote a song, and I presented it to, the instructors, and they say, oh, yeah, that's nice, but we got to hear the words, because the words will determine what kind of song it is. with music is music. I don't think music is evil or good, although there some people can manipulate music. For example, if there's a certain set of chords you can play, discordant chords that will kind of grate on your nerve or whatever and kind of change your mood, and then there are certain songs, that are all pleasant chords that put you in a different mood. But music is music. So when I hear him saying, stop bringing that whatever word he said, that worldly stuff into the church. So I don't know that I disagree with that, and I would go a step further. All right, so then if you're going to take that music out of the church, take down the Christmas trees, stop having the Easter egg hunts. Do I need to go on?
I'm not sure.
Huh?
Well, if they are having if they're having altar call, and the musicians start playing "Ribbon in the Sky,"
Right.
That is, people haven't heard it on radio. They don't know what you're playing. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to them, because they're not going to start singing, the words to a song. There was a Natalie Cole song that I really loved, and I used to play it, I deconstruct it. I didn't play the song the way it was, but I would play the chords, kind of vary it, right? And one person said to me, "Man, I feel like I'm in the nightclub." Well, that was their experience. They heard it in the nightclub, and when they heard that song, that's what they equated it to. Did that make the song good or bad?
I wouldn't necessarily use the terms good and bad, but certainly music is a language, and we can't forget that. And what makes it a language without instrumental music? I mean,
Yes.
because if one is watching something on a cinema, a horror movie or something, they use a certain music to go with
exactly.
whatever the message is that they're seeing visually. And so that idea that music is music, that's true. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad. What makes music good is when it's well done, whatever it is. But I'm saying that there is a language that certain progressions sort of evoke in people. Is that the intention? And then even beyond that, if I am playing something that perhaps is clubbish and that kind of stuff, what kind of reaction am I trying to get out of the listener, right? I think that is lost when we just kind of generalize music as being music and anything is appropriate. And I don't mean that in a judgmental sense as far as church is concerned, but I do think that the idea that music is a universal language, and that it communicates not just because it's sound, but because of the harmonies, because of the melodies. Calmer music, for example, using classical music has a certain effect on people as opposed to rap music, for example.
Yeah,
they're both music,
yeah,
but they're communicating something different. Anyway, enough of that.
I totally agree. Hey, Brother Mitchell, so glad you joined us. I'll catch you up in a minute. You do realize that the music that we call gospel music was at one time called the devil's music. Thomas Dorsey brought, he played for Ma Rainey, right? She was I forgot what they call it, but she was a blues singer. Some kind of bottom. Was it Black Bottom or something like that? But she was Black Bottom. He took that music and brought it directly into the church. And then brought, drums. I won't say he did it, but he paved the way to bring musical instruments in the church, because before that, they barely wanted a piano in the church. There's still a denomination out there who wants no musical instruments in the church. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that how you determine music is subjective, and it's based on your experiences. But because you play a certain song in a certain way, now, for example, I would not ever sit at a piano or in a church service or at an organ and play a song straight from the R&B world. If I play it, I will deconstruct it because I like the chord passages. Now, whether that elicits a response that reminds people of their clubbing days, that's on them, right? So for me, music is subjective. I see you turned your mic off, Brother Mitchell. You want to hop in there?
I'm just kind of listening to everything being said because, you know, you say music is subjective. That's really kind of true, in the sense that if you were to listen to everybody generally right now knows the song "Every Praise."
Yeah.
If you were to take the lyrics away, and just play the music, what song would you have?
Every step you take.
Or what else?
Come on with it.
Stand by me.
Yeah, I can see that chord structure is
Had any problem with it when Hezekiah Walker comes up there and talks about every praise is to our God, and like you said, every step you take with the little guitar riff, nobody had a problem with that because they were singing every praise is to our God. But if all of a sudden I get up there and I start every breath you take,
right.
Well, I don't know. I don't know necessarily because that very well. That's an example of something that I was talking about earlier. I judge the musician based on what they select and where they use it. I think that there are some things that are more mild or that would be more appropriate to be used in church. Every praise or every step, that music is quite different than doing some other stuff that perhaps
the
is
hard
more,
rap. You talking about like hard rap or something like that?
Yeah, I mean that I'm not talking. I'm trying to make a point by extremes, I guess. But some things do fit better, and it all says something about the musician, right? And so,
right. Can I hop in there? Let me give you an example. James Cleveland, when he sang it, he said, "Jesus is the best thing that ever happened to me."
Right.
When Gladys Knight sang it, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." How about the song that Marvin Sapp sang? Everybody thought he was talking about God, and he was talking about his father.
Right. Right.
Again, that's what I say. Music is subjective. If I were to sit and play a song that you liked but you had never heard before, and you were like, "Oh man, I like that song. What is it?" And I say, "Oh yeah, that's from the Bee Gees. They did that song." Or the Temptations. That was an early hit for them, right? So I guess I'm not doing a good job. What I'm saying.
I think it's a both and. I don't think it's an either or. That's it. I totally agree with you. Everyone kind of interprets the world and their music from their own context. That's the subjectivity.
Thank you.
I get that, and I agree with that. I'm just saying that there are certain things that certain things that I think would be a bit over the top to use in church.
Well, they're over the top in your mind now, but 10 years from now, that'll be the norm.
Exactly. Yeah, gospel music, like I said, when Thomas Dorsey first brought it up, there was some churches, because I know in the Chicagoland area, they said you will not sing that devil music up in here, and they called it devil music, right?
Well, you know what's crazy?
Huh?
They say that, but back in the 1700s or 1500s, 1600s, the tritone was considered the devil's chord.
Exactly.
And now we use tritones in everything.
Not only that, but some of our hymns were actually beer hall songs. They just changed the words. Am I right?
Mighty Fortress is our God.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So again, it's 37 minutes past the hour. Thank you for joining. This is the Black Church Musicians Union, and we are discussing music and whether music is good or bad. I played a little clip, and you missed this, Tom, but I played a little clip in which this guy was saying, look, even if people don't recognize it, don't be bringing that devil stuff up in the church. And, you know, my feeling is that music is music. The person, you know, puts the qualifier on it as to whether it's worldly, whether it's good, whether it's not. To me, music is music. When God created music, how do we know what form it took? How do we know it was right or wrong? How do we know that, you know, we're not repeating it and somehow changing it? I mean,
how do we know the song that Paul and Silas sang when the chains dropped wasn't a rap?
Yeah. I agree.
We don't know.
We don't
They
know.
haven't recorded what they sang. All we know is they were singing hymns.
Yeah.
according to the scriptures, and and because what they saying created an atmosphere that blessed people, and I think
That's
trying to think from a minister standpoint, people want songs and the music to coordinate a certain atmosphere for the area of worship that people won't be distracted. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what that is. Brother Paramount, you said a lot of stuff tonight that I totally agree with, and that's a first for me. Hey, listen, music. So I would tell anybody that. Okay, yeah, just like saying certain ice creams nobody should eat. Why? Because you don't. It's like you said, the content and the purpose in the music is what you're looking for. What you play in a banquet. So you have to know what music and the purpose behind it, so that the greater benefit is being shared and expressed. Again, all chords are good. It's how you place them and how they are shared in the music. As long as it makes musical sense, they're not just sitting there laying on all the keys at the same time. But if it makes musical sense and it does not become a distraction to that moment in the worship experience, I really don't see no problem with it. Now, of course, this particular gentleman, he was talking about something that, some guys using some stems and stuff where they were using. Now, again, sometimes you can go off the rails. When you go off the rails, you say, listen, kind of bring it back a little bit. Come on, stay on pull. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
With musicians, that happens sometimes. But I don't think that you can't say, well, this is the devil music, this is God music, this is the angels music. No, you can't do that. That's someone who's not educated enough to what music really is and how it can be expressed in many areas.
Yeah, I've heard the stem several times. So can somebody define stem for anybody who might be watching this? I know what a stem is, but what do we mean when we say musical stems?
It's tracks of music that could contain vocals or instrumental or rhythm beats in them, and they're being played along with live musicians.
Right, and sometimes it's used when you want to collaborate with somebody. You send them a part of the song or certain instruments from the track. You don't send them the whole song so that they can either record it, practice it, or whatever. So just want to make sure we all know that.
Well, I did want to jump in there and say I just love what Burgess said, and that is not the first. He says a lot of stuff that I like, and a lot of stuff that's challenging as well, and a lot of stuff that's brave. But I guess what was really important that I heard amongst a lot of things he said was we don't want to forget that the end purpose is to redeem souls. And so anything that distracts from that, and that's perhaps where my sensitivity will come in. This isn't appropriate because it's sort of like this isn't appropriate for me to wear on church or to preach on Sunday because they're going to be looking at what I'm wearing more than hear what I'm preaching. And so I think that cannot be lost in this because otherwise it's really just about the musician. I like these tunes and I want people to hear them, right? No, I want people to hear the gospel, and I think that this will help them get there with my careful use of whatever kind of music. Because I agree with you, Reverend Blair, that there is no good or bad, but I think that there's appropriate and inappropriate, and I think that there is balance, and all of that to me defines the person who's doing the creating.
I agree,
you have to always consider your audience for one. You definitely have to consider who's going to be there, what type of atmosphere or event this is, those kind of things. I tell you like this. I talk to a lot of young musicians. I got one young brother. He's in his 30s, and we had a conversation. And I usually ask him, how was Sunday? Because he's a musician at another church on Sunday, and his terminology we always get caught up in terminology. It's, oh man, we were bumping today. I was like, okay, what does that mean? What do you mean that you were bumping? Explain that to me. And he goes through explaining what he's talking about. And then at that point, I have context, but I'm kind of like Brother Sam. I'm a little bit on the edge, like, okay, was this appropriate or inappropriate? What were y'all doing exactly? You know, because I'm trying to guide.